Hi, this is Sandro. Today we're going to talk about objections. Now, if you have been in any kind of sales business for a number of years, there's a very good possibility, I think, that you have come across an objection or two, from I want to think about it, to email me the information, to I'll get back to you, to I don't believe in this, or I've got no money, and there's lots of other variations, I'm sure. Now, the reality is that most people, particularly in financial services, don't know how to handle those objections when they get them. We were always taught that if somebody said something like, I want to think about it, the immediate reaction would be, well, what do you want to think about? And that is a fundamental mistake before we even get started. Why? Because an objection is typically a negative thought. There is a call and need for further information. I was once told by someone, who I disagree with, by the way, that an objection is a buying signal. I'm not necessarily sure that's true, but whether it is or whether it isn't, the reality is somebody needs more information. Something is getting in the way. And by pushing against that objection, you create even more of a roadblock. So I'm going to give you a 3-step process to follow. You can follow the links and you can get far more information, including a full script if you want to. But let's just take something like I've got no money. And yet, logically, you've concluded that they have got money because you've just completed a fact finder, for example, and they might have, a few $100s a month of net disposable income. So there's a disconnect between what you're being told and what you see. But there might be a good reason why somebody's raised this objection. Maybe in their mind, they're spending this money on school fees or an impending holiday or something like that. But they may not necessarily tell you that. They may not necessarily be able to articulate it. But there is a disconnect nevertheless. The 3-step process is really easy to follow. It takes a little while to practice and get used to using it. But ostensibly, it sounds like this. The first step is to 100% welcome the objection. I did not say agree with the objection, but certainly welcoming the objection. And typically we'd say something like, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Or if it was of a more personal nature, I don't like you, I don't like your company, then clearly saying something like, I'm so glad you mentioned that wouldn't work. But something like, thank you for being so honest, is a very good way as an alternative to welcoming the same objection. E stands for empathy. That's step number 2. And the basic building block of all human interaction is empathy. So I would typically say something like, if I was you, I would be feeling or thinking the same way. That is me connecting with somebody else on a personal level, letting them know that I understand and that I empathize. That creates the opportunity then for me to share with them what is coming next, step number 3, which is the logical question. Now, as a general principle in life, if you ask a logical question, the answer to that question will always be yes, unless somebody's brain is not wired in quite the right way, in which case that's what I call coat time. Get your coat and leave. But if you ask a logical question, the answer will always be yes. If you ask an emotional question, you have no control over whether the answer will be yes or no. Typically, a logical question would be something like, specifically in relation to the objection I've just raised, it would be something like, if I could show you how I work with my other clients to create money they did not have before they met me, would that be of value? And the key words here are of value as a closing couple of words to that sentence. Not of value to you, because then it turns a logical question into an emotional question. It becomes very much about them and they analyze whether it would be of value to them. Whereas more generically, would this be of value? In other words, all I'm asking for is permission to share some of the ways that I create money, save money typically, for other clients. There's a couple of principles at play here. We've talked about those before. If you are not familiar with what I'm talking about, you know where to go for those extra resources and videos. But the main one here is this principle of consensus. Typically, people want to know what other people do. And we'll talk about consensus again at another time. But this is a very effective way if you master it and practice it. And of course, you change the words depending on the particular objection that's being raised. There's plenty of resources. I've come up with scripts, suggested scripts for 6 or 7 different and fairly typical objections. So again, click on the link, access those free resources if you want to, or contact me for more information.